Everyone, welcome to another edition of the Farm Down NFL podcast with me, Jim, and Denver Dave. We're talking about the NFL. Dave, how are we doing?
It's nice and quiet. There's no noise.
This is like the old days, man. It's just me and
No
you
idiots
again.
just chirping in your ear all the time. God.
Oh, Finn and Punk Raider are currently off being head coach and GM, so getting their position groupings sorted out for our mock draft. So what we're doing in the interim is we're just going to be talking about a couple of our favorite players coming into this draft. It's going to be a massive podcast in our mock draft. So we just don't have that much time to talk about the players that we really like watching. So this is a little chance for us to talk about 3 players each that we really like, which some of them obviously may be talked about in round 1. Some of them maybe not. I've at least got one sleeper who's not going to be picked in round 1. I've gone for some very basic ones just because these are like wow players for me.
Mine will be day 2 players,
okay.
who someone will fall in love with, and if any of them go in round 1, I'll be very shocked. But players to keep an eye on nevertheless.
Okay. I'm going to start with a player that could go number 1 overall, and that is Anthony Richardson. This has been really difficult for me. I actually wrote an article on Anthony Richardson, which is on the Patreon, just because I wasn't expecting to like him as much as I do, and it's kind of confused me. It's made me question a lot of things about how I judge quarterbacks, at least how I used to anyway, because I've always looked at a quarterback and looked at the floor and said, you need to have a very high floor if I'm going to be drafting you, because you want to have that security. You want to know that he's not going to be an absolute bust. But at the same time, Anthony Richardson, I don't have that concern that he's going to be a bust. But what I also see is a guy that has the potential to absolutely dominate this league. Very much like Patrick Mahomes did when I was watching him at Texas Tech. This is a guy that if everything works out, if he goes to the right place, and is treated right and is helped, he could be that person. He could be an alpha predator in this league. He has the physicality of Lamar Jackson. He has the arm. He has the strongest arm in the draft. Even Will Levis, Mr. Coffee and mayonnaise drinker, doesn't have the arm that Anthony Richardson does. He's only played 13 games, so he's raw, but he got better as the season went on. People knock the accuracy, but a couple of things about that. First of all, even PFF, when they regraded based on what should have been caught, knocked about 10 points up on his accuracy percentage. And secondly, he was thrown to absolute dross. There was no Kyle Pitts in Florida anymore. This was Ricky Pearsall, who can't get separation if his life depended on it. So he didn't have anything to go with. The defense was terrible as well for Florida. The O-line was almost non-existent. He was having to drag his team through games. And I think it showed. But obviously, when you just look at the stats, you don't see that. What I've seen in watching several games of him and listening to analysis and everything else is I see a guy that has the absolute moon to shoot at. And I think he can do it. I'm absolutely enamored with this guy. I think if you were sensible as the Panthers, you should take him. And he'll probably be starting before the end of the season. As much as I'd like to sit him, I think he's good enough that he can probably get away with it if he had to come in and start. I would like him to sit, but I think he can start.
I think the problem you've got with Richardson is that there's 2 guys whose skills feel more transferable to the NFL right ahead of him. I think CJ Stroud is I think odds on to be a good NFL quarterback. And I think Bryce Young has everything to allow him to become a good NFL quarterback. Whereas Anthony Richardson, yes, physically he is phenomenal. But it's an unknown. There aren't many quarterbacks who transition with his style and the way he plays. But I agree with you. He's exciting to watch. As long as he doesn't go to a team in my division, I'm more than happy to watch him week in, week out and be a little bit excited by him. So it's a good pick. It's not the pick I expected you to make.
I think it is the way the league's going, though, because it is more of a physical. It's more of a dual threat. He's much more. You see Jalen Hurts. Even Patrick Mahomes has to scramble, and he still keeps his head up. And to be fair, Anthony Richardson was keeping his head, but he wasn't head down and charging through. He could have done it. He had the physicality. He could have been a massive runner. He still was looking for the pass down the field, and those kind of things they stand out on the tape for me.
Yep, I agree. I think he just oozes ability in everything that he does. That has to be transition though, and anyone who gets him has to be patient.
Which is why I was talking about that high floor and low floor. And when you talk about CJ Stroud, he's got a high floor, but he's still in a higher stake quarterback. And there's always that problem for me with a higher stake quarterbacks. You know, there's only been two that have actually done anything of any note, and there's been 15 drafted in the last since 1970, since the merger. Ohio State is set up for the quarterback to be on easy mode, basically. He's got Paris Johnson as his left tackle, and he had Jackson Smith and Jigba as his wide receiver one, who is the number one wide receiver in the draft. So he was just on easy mode. He had 4 or 5 seconds in the pocket to launch a ball, and it usually got caught, and it was fine. There were games when CJ Stroud didn't do an awful lot. He had one very good game against Georgia, I think it was. But other than that, there's no standout tape. So he has a very high floor, but I actually think he's got a very small ceiling. And with Bryce Young, I love Bryce Young, but I think we've seen his ceiling already, which is good enough to be an NFL starter. Don't get me wrong. He has the best talent right now, but I think there's not much more to see from him.
When the play broke down with CJ Stroud, his ability to think on the run, which is a big part of the NFL, being able to say, okay, script's broken down, what do I do now? And he was hitting everyone on the numbers. He wasn't just throwing it up there. So I agree that he was probably on easy street, but he made easy street look even easier than it was. The ability for Anthony Richardson, what's going to make or break his career is number one, how seriously he takes it, where he lands, and how soon he's bought in. If someone's a bit patient with him and say, okay, learn the ropes, learn the playbook, so you can do the things that you need to do. You can know what to do in the right circumstances, because being a quarterback is about moments. And that's where Carson Wentz falls down. He looks okay, and then there will be moments of madness where he does things and think, what are you doing? And they're the moments that Anthony Richardson has to avoid.
He was a classic example of someone who got thrown straight in.
Yep.
And didn't have that time. He came from North Dakota State. It was a big jump
just
up.
Because he's done it now, just because he's done it once doesn't mean he has to do it again. It means he can do it in college, but college and NFL, despite their similarities, are very different.
Yeah. No, I think just the fact that it's how confident I am in him that I think that he could go in and actually start this season. I think he can, because I do have trust in him. I know that he can do it. I know that he's a serious person. He just did an article just recently talking about how much he really wants to go somewhere and be a proper player. He has got the grounding, I think, to be not a Jalen Carter type.
That's the article that whoever wrote that article for him did a very good job.
He did do a very good job, yeah.
His agent did a very good job. He
co-signed it. I tell you, some bloody bad agents out there, so he's done a good job.
There we go. I've gone slightly off center. So I haven't picked a guy who I thought could go first overall. I picked a guy who I thought, because I thought what we were doing was who could nip into the first round. The player that I've put in who could nip into the first round is, I first go wide receiver. I'm talking about Tennessee wide receiver Cedric Tillman. So for anyone who doesn't know, Tillman is like 6'4", big guy. He reminds me a bit of a Mike Evans, but with a little bit more speed. But he is huge, like massive. Yeah. And I'm not talking
6'3", 213 pounds.
He's a big guy. And the issue, I think the main thing with him is his catch radius is enormous, which a lot of teams are looking for now. In all of college, he only dropped 5 passes. In all
104 catchable passes, yeah.
Yeah, unbelievable. That is unbelievable. So it doesn't surprise me hugely that a lot of people are talking about him. He just jumps off the page in terms of tape. This year, so previous years, we've seen really good wide receivers who have really good wide receiver classes, and it's deep, and there's different types of receivers. We don't really have that this year. There's a few standout guys, but then it's about what do you like? And I like Tillman, and the amount of times you've seen him bursting through lines with defenders hanging off him, and he just kind of reminds me of a bit of a Javonte Adams breaking tackles and just continuing running. It will be sort of his yards after catch is measured in kilometers. And I'm a massive fan of his. And I think if he goes somewhere like Kansas, for example, because I think they're going to be looking for a wide receiver sort of late on, I can see them kind of going, look, we like Tillman, let's just bring him in. The alternative is, of course, that they could go for someone else that they really like say Flowers, for example. I think is probably a good shout for
Bottom of the
the Chiefs. But
first, yeah.
yeah, that's the only way I think he's going to get into the first. Other than that, he'll be in the second. I think the Jags will fit Tillman really well with the way that he plays. But he's a guy I think is going to have a good NFL career. Doesn't really matter when he goes. I think he just looks like a good, honest player.
He's just like the possession guy in the draft, isn't he? So I mean, Quentin Flowers is supposed to be like him, but Quentin Flowers drops the ball all the time. I don't know. Sorry, Quentin Johnson. I mix up Zay Flowers and Quentin Johnson.
Quentin Johnson's explosive, but
he drops so much.
His hands are made of stone.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
I'm glad you're on the same point as this, because obviously when you do the mock draft, I can't think of myself putting him forwards as a first round pick.
No.
I'm glad we're in agreement on that one.
My comp for Quentin Johnson is Mike Williams, as in the Chargers famed Mike Williams. And Mike Williams has a phenomenal highlight catch reel, but he also has some that go directly through his hands and hit him in the helmet.
Yeah.
He has, again, it's moments. He has moments where it just doesn't.
What have you just done?
Just
Quentin?
doesn't. Yeah, it just doesn't quite work. And I listen, man. I hope the Chiefs move up for him and they go and get him, because he will not last long in Kansas.
No.
But that could transition. He could transition well to the NFL because he's a big guy and he's a big athletic player, but his hands are made of stone.
Some people love him. He's been
he'll transition.
PFF have him as their highest rated wide receiver, which I think is crazy, but that's just PFF for you. Yeah.
Blimey.
Yeah.
Blimey, Jesus, that's fair enough.
They look at stats. They look at stats. They don't look at anything else.
I suppose. I think he'll probably go in the first round. Wouldn't surprise me if he dropped a little bit. He could transition to tight end, which I think he probably will, because he can block really well. Will he be a success in the NFL? Maybe, but he needs to clean his game up. Same as who's the mate boy who was drafted by Green Bay? What was his name? The dropper.
Watson.
Watson. So Christian Watson was dropping loads of balls in college. He seems to have, that cleared that part of his game up. And if Johnson can do the same, fine. Nothing wrong with that.
If wishes were fishes.
If.
It could work. Okay, let's do my second one. Again, I've gone so basic in this one. Anyone that spent 5 minutes talking about the draft will know that this running back is Bijan Robinson from Texas. He's 5'11", 215 pounds. He is basically the Daniel Tomlinson, as far as I can see. He is the second coming of LT. I mean, I've seen some special running backs through the draft the last few years, but nothing like this. Nothing anywhere close to what this guy can do. He just does it all. I firmly believe that he's going to come in and instantly be a top 5 running back in this league, because he just does it. It's hard to not just find superlatives for this guy. He can cut. He's got the top end speed. He's a magician. He goes through the A gap, through the B gap. He'll run sweep. He'll just do and he catches the ball as well just as easily out of the backfield or down the field. He just is an all-round weapon that someone like the bloody Eagles are going to take because they can afford to. They can afford to go up early. And I know that running back is so devalued, but he isn't. He is the overall football player. He is Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel wrapped up in one. He can do everything. I'm scared for where he goes, because it's not going to be a bedding in period. You're going to put him in the fantasy team straight away. He's going to go off. You need to go and watch highlight tape of Bijan Robinson right now if you're listening to this, because no matter what I say, we'll do him justice. He's insane.
My comp for him was Saquon Barkley, which I don't feel is ridiculous. I think
he's not. He's better than Saquon.
No. But my comp for him, who he's like. The issue that I've got is he was part of a Texas 1-2 punch.
Mm-hmm.
Roschon Johnson, I think, was the other running back who was there. And what was basically happening, and this is not a criticism. This is fact.
Good luck with the criticism.
No, it's not a criticism. Texas would run on you all day. And by the second half, the defense is knackered. and Robinson would come in and just destroy you. And he's playing against college guys who are blowing out their arse. That's my only comment that I can say. And I don't think you can argue with that because it's factual.
If you're getting beaten, you're getting beaten.
I agree. Will that transition to the NFL? Maybe. Will his skills transition to the NFL? Yes. Will he be a top 5? Not sure. I think he'll be good, and I've got no massive argument with you. It's just that's the only thing that really makes me wonder, in the fact that he had a lot of help. His offensive line was decent, and it's Texas. You run first football.
Decent. It wasn't elite as an offensive line.
He didn't need to be. You're playing for Texas. He's not playing in.
What do you mean? I don't know, man.
Listen, it's.
I'm putting my hat on it now. I'm putting my hat on it. Bijan Robinson.
I don't necessarily disagree with you.
I've come into a Hall of Fame player, an all-decade player.
I mean, you've comped him to the player who holds the record for most rushing touchdowns in an entire season.
Mm-hmm.
I've comped him to Saquon Barkley. The thing is, when he goes in next season and he's good, you'll say, "I told you," and I'll be like, "I know."
Oh yeah, yeah. But you just said he had it easy. I'm not sure he had it that easy.
I'm not saying he had it easy. What I'm saying is he had it easier because he was playing in a 1-2 punch against players who were knackered. Will that transition to the NFL? Probably, but
the Eagles O-line to run behind. Jesus.
Exactly. But he is undoubtedly a talented player. But I'm not having you going, I picked this player.
No, I'm not saying that. I won't hold that over you, Dave. I won't.
You can't. That's why. I'll hold a running back over you. And I mentioned this to you on WhatsApp the other day.
Mm-hmm.
Zach Charbonnet. So he played for UCLA, and he is. So anyone who doesn't know, my comp for him is Elijah Mitchell or old David Johnson.
Okay.
Remember Arizona David Johnson?
Yeah. The good one. Yeah.
The good one. And you watch him and he kind of once he gets up to speed, that's it, done. He's rubbish in the receiving game, kind of snatches at the ball. But I mean, you can work on that, so it's not too much of an issue. He moved from Michigan, went to Pac-12,
UCLA,
and went to UCLA. And in the Pac-12, he's just a different beast. So he's playing against players who are not as good at him. He's a downhill runner, loves to run off the right tackle, which may simply because the right tackle at UCLA was good. Last year had 3 games over 180 yards. Only had 2 games under 100 yards, and that was 77 yards and 95 yards respectively. Mm-hmm. So he is consistent.
There was no week off.
The problem is, despite 4 years of college, he doesn't really have a lot of tread on the tires. So he's not a guy who's had tons and tons. It's not a James Conner where the Steelers bought him in and you could see him wearing down and he became a goal line threat 3 years into his contract. Mm-hmm. He's one of those guys who has skills that can transition to the NFL if he goes to the team who has a decent quarterback and a decent offensive line. If he goes to the Rams, love him. If he goes to the Bucks, I mean, it's going to be hard. It's just, if he goes to the Eagles, for example, God, get him in your fantasy team. He's that good. But he gets big chunk plays. You tend to get backs who either average 4 yards a carry, like Zeke used to, or you get guys who average 1-2 yards a carry, but then they'll burst 85 yards.
Yeah,
and he's kind of both. So he'll scramble for 4 or 5 yards a carry, instant, second and short at times. But also, as soon as he breaks the line, that's it, he's gone. He's so good.
He reminded me a little bit of Leonard Fournette. He was very quick, but he also seemed to relish contact as well. So he would not shy away from
I think he's as far from Leonard Fournette as you can get. Not in I'm not criticizing. Yeah. But the thing with Leonard Fournette is he would barrel into people to get another 3 or 4 yards, whereas Charbonnet kind of will move away, invite tackles, and still carry on. He reminds me more of LeGarrette Blount in that term. So Blount will kind of ride the tackle and get hit and keep on going and get another 7 or 8, 9 yards or something like that. The one thing he really needs to focus on, well, the two things are his receiving game and a little bit of patience. He doesn't have that Le'Veon Bell, where's the gap, where's the gap?
No.
But college, a lot of players in college don't have that. But no, he's my favorite running back by he's not the best. He's my favorite running back.
Yeah, Jameer Gibbs is better. So,
yeah. I mean, Bijan Robinson's better.
Yeah, than that, I was saying, yeah, there's massive gulf between first and second anyway. Okay, so those are the two. Well, I've done two very basic ones that everyone should know, but I just wanted to talk about them because they're that good. My third one, I've been diving down the rabbit hole of linebackers recently, Dave, and there's so many that are really actually quite good. I thought it was going to be a really bad class because no one's got them in the first round or whatever. I don't think any of them probably go first round, but I think because there's a muchness of about at least half a dozen, I think that's why they're kind of holding each other back a little bit, because you can go, oh, if I don't get him, I'll get him. If I don't get him, I'll get him. Yeah. So it's actually, there's quite a few to choose from. I really liked Dorian Williams from Tulane. 6'1", 228 pounds, but he's a middle linebacker wall. I mean, he hurts you when he hits you. He's so smart to diagnose the play and will take care of the quarterback if you signal a pass. He can wrap up runners and receivers. I mean, I've seen him break through a running back screen and hit the guy in the backfield. He's an absolute dart when he gets going. He's so quick, but he's clever as well. He's not just a blitzer. He's not, he can get back in coverage. He can take the ball away from you. He just seems to know where to go every time. I really like Dorian Williams from Tulane. And I don't think I won't get a chance to talk about him on the mock.
Are you concerned the fact that he's not playing against particularly high, particularly good, solid players, that he's coming in almost as an unknown?
There's always going to be that thing, isn't there? If you're not in the SEC, then the standard drops a little bit.
He's not even in the Pac-12.
No, I know, but you can only judge by what you're watching. It's a bit like, I don't know. There's just some players that just seem to outgrow that division. He could have played anywhere, I think, and still turned in the performance he was doing, because you're diagnosing what's going on. He's reading the quarterback. He's reading the play. He's shutting it down straight away.
Okay,
that's what I saw with Dorian Williams.
When he comes in, I think it will benefit him playing in a 3-4 rather than a 4-3. So he's going to have someone next to him because he's going to be playing middle linebacker, and he can't play the Mike position immediately. I think a perfect landing spot for him would probably be the Chargers. Because he'll have a lot of help next to him. The problem with that is the outside linebacker at that point might be Khalil Mack, who does nothing but charge the charge the quarterback. So
no.
Do you know what? I hope he goes to the Jets, because he'd slot in quite nicely in that middle linebacker position. I have no opinion of him.
Okay.
I neither love nor hate.
I think I like the guy as well. I think just watching his tape and and then seeing his interviews as well, I just really like the guy. So I don't really have many qualms if we would. It's always thing like, if your team would take him, would you be happy if he was drafted by your team? I would be. Obviously not. It's a day 2 or a day 3 guy. He's not going to be taken early.
Are you still going to love him if the Broncos take him? Because we need a middle linebacker. Of
course I would.
You'd hate him. You'd like, oh, he's rubbish.
I mean, I've seen some mock drafts. They're confident taking Captain Jack Campbell from Iowa with our second pick. Again, that could happen. He seems a bit like a Brian Urlacher type, bit slow, but knows what it seems like a very old school middle linebacker to me.
That's the problem.
Yeah, and I think there are better ones. Trenton Simpson, I think, is better at Clemson.
He's Clemson though. My defense. So I've picked a defensive.
Those that don't know quickly. Those that don't know, Dave hates Clemson. So
I do hate
Clemson. Simpson is a great player, but
have I ever explained why I hate Clemson? Have I ever explained why? Or is it just...
You might have done. I can't remember.
So basically, right, Clemson play in a division where the best team that they play against is Wake Forest. They play no one all season. It's like Scottish football minus Celtic and Rangers. Sorry to our Dundee United fans out there.
No.
But they basically play in a division with no one else, and they win game after game after game after game after game. They destroy teams, and they have this overinflated sense of self-importance. Like, yeah, we're the best. It's garbage and they're rubbish. They've only had two decent quarterbacks in their history. One of them's a list.
Mhm.
The fact is, you might have to bleep that.
They-
The fact is, they play one decent team a year, and that's in the playoffs, and they lose that game. It's like
oh, they
when
have
the
won the division championship a few times as well. Like
okay, yeah,
with Deshaun Watson,
when
they
they've
did.
had
With that guy
when
we're
they've
talking
had
about.
a couple of decent quarterbacks.
Yeah, yeah.
Take that out of their
All right,
history.
okay, yeah, yeah.
I mean, Gaza played for Rangers at one point.
He
It's
did,
like
yeah.
a team in who's the Lincoln Redims who play in Gibraltar. They've won the league for every single season for the past 23 years. They go into the first qualifying round and play a Moldovan second division team and get beat 5-0. That's basically Clemson. But
Okay.
every year they pull out a couple of players who look great on paper.
Could recruit players.
Who was the cornerback? Yeah, because they know it's going to be easy. And
Yeah.
Clemson itself is a nice college in South Carolina. It's a thoroughly nice college. Who's the cornerback they had last year? Who you were saying, oh, he's going to be really good. He's trash. He was absolute trash.
Hey, wait, I know
I can't
Andrew
even remember who
Booth.
it
I said
was.
Andrew
Andrew
Booth.
Booth.
I
And
never said
he
it was going
was.
to be brilliant.
You said he was going to be all right.
No, I
He is
didn't.
garbage. He is
Oh my god.
rubbish because he
He was
plays
like my
against no one all
my fourth
season.
cornerback on my board. That's so what?
He was my 40th cornerback on the board. That's why I hate Clemson. And I don't like
All
teams that
right,
play
all right.
I don't like teams that play in orange either.
No,
So
terrible.
yeah, my defensive lineman plays for Baylor, and my comp to him is Vita Vea, Sakia
Ooh.
Ika.
Mhm.
Now, if you watch him, he's basically a wrecking ball in the center, phenomenal against the run, which immediately will transition to the NFL. His ability to sort of draw in either the A or the B gap and take up two men to create holes. If he goes to a team, if he goes to like the Bills or something, the Bills could really use him as that center attack. And you
Yeah.
got Von Miller rushing from the outside. Oh my God. I mean, Von Miller's going to buy him a car just to say thanks, man. You're making the end of my career look great. I think the comp of Vita Vea is as close to being perfect as you can get. And it's that ability to just, from a standing position, his speed off his feet. I love him. He's one of my favorite players in the entire draft. And the second you said, he is one of the reasons we're doing this podcast. Saying that, get players who may slip into the first or it might be high second.
Yeah.
He's the first person I thought of. Like genuinely, he's that good. He could come in and be, I'm not going to say an all pro in his first year. He could easily be a pro bowler in his first year, depending on who he goes
Wow.
to. I think he suits the Seahawks really well because the Seahawks need that leverage in the middle. But I think he really would suit a team who've got decent sort of outside rushing rushers. I mean, we'll probably get to the 49ers and be an all pro. Who knows?
I've seen the comp for him of Jonathan Hankins. He is probably best at nose tackle, and
probably
also better at.
That's a bit rough.
What? Jonathan Hankins is a good player.
Yeah, he's not a Vita Vea. I think.
Oh, he's not Vita Vea, but I think you're over egging that one. So
I don't think I am because his ability to run. I mean, he's a big guy, but his ability to actually run and play in against an outside zone offense will help him significantly. And I think he's also one of those guys who could cut back when stopping the run. And the amount of times he strips the ball and he's just a one-on-one nightmare. So he's immediately going to soak up a center and a guard. The issue with him is in college he got flagged a bit because he's a lot stronger than everyone else. It's kind of, that thing in football when Emil Heskey would go, every time you go down he gives a foul away because it's so dramatic. And that's what it was in college. So a lot of the flag issue, I don't think it will be because he's playing against guys who are bigger and stronger. And it's kind of more fair. I mean, playing at Baylor as well, he was just dominating people.
Where is he ranking them for you in these defensive tackles? If we ignore Jalen Carter, because obviously he's the standout on the interior.
Jalen Carter is the standout. I'm taking him probably 2 or 3 after that.
Okay.
Chance is good.
Elijah Cansey.
Pittsburgh, but I think again, small school, a lot stronger than everyone else on the field. I think they're comps. But it's who falls in love with them. It wouldn't surprise me if either of them two go to the Patriots, for example. Is he a Jalen Carr? No.
No one is. But
that's the issue, But my comp to Vita Vea, I think, is fair.
I quite like
You know,
Keanu Benton as a later round defensive tackle. I think he's pretty decent.
different
Wisconsin.
players though. Different players though.
Well, they're both good run defenders. I suppose Benton's a better pass rusher than Ika.
Well,
Uh,
Benson's
Benton.
the Benson's the inside speed rusher rather than Ikea being the power rusher. So they would suit different offenses. Benson would suit Steelers because it's that get forward, get pressure, apply pressure, squeeze from the outside. He'd be perfect for the Steelers. Ikea wouldn't. There's no point in the Steelers drafting Ikea. There's no point whatsoever. It doesn't fit your scheme.
No.
Absolutely does. So it all depends on success of where they should. I mean, if you move Watt on the inside slightly, then Ikea would be the perfect guy. But it depends purely on landing spot. That's all it is.
You got Brian Breezy from
No.
Clemson. He's
No.
Mazzy Smith.
knew
What
you were
about
gonna
Mazzy
say
Smith
that.
then? From Michigan. Because he's decent.
Yeah.
He's like a Venus flytrap.
Yes, he is. Whose defense is he playing in? How many men does he have around him? How many men does he have around him? Rushing.
10? Oh, it's a rushing.
Yeah, doing nothing but rushing the quarterback because that's basically all Michigan do. That is a Harvard defense. That's all they do. And I've nothing against that. If he goes to the Ravens, perfect. You couldn't ask for anything better. Moves from one brother to another. Absolutely perfect. Other than that, I'm not picking him in the first or second.
Okay. That's why we have these conversations, Dave, to try and get a flavour of what we're aiming at in this mock draft. Because, as you know, we're going to be each pitching a player to Finland to Punk to pick out as we work our way through the first round. It's going to be interesting. I think there's going to be some weird picks going on here because they have no idea who we're talking about for the most part. So it's all going to be who we comp it as. I think it's
to a certain degree. I still don't bank too much on the comp. I'm not going to say I don't bank too much on the comp. I've done comps this year. I didn't do them last year. I think it's more on the way the team play. So if you would say to me, I want an edge rusher, and I'm the Raiders. Well, there's one obvious choice who that would be, because of the way that they play, and I think that's going to be the key part in explaining that. But we're doing it a little bit different this year. So it's not just a straightforward. We have Punk saying, "Well, Jim's won that argument, so therefore I'm going to pick that one," or him saying, "I want to annoy Jim, so I'm going to pick Dave." That's kind of the way that it's done previously. Whereas there's going to be more of a conversation happening this year on why a player's being picked, and hopefully a couple of arguments that will break out. But I'm sure the draft one is my favorite. It's my favorite part of the year. It's going to be long, but it's our podcast, so I shouldn't say this, but I'm gonna. It's the best mock draft out there.
Oh.
I haven't done it yet. No, I know, but last year I think it was not great. I think we only got like 5 right. The year before we got like 8 or 9 right. Which is
that's where mock drafts always get confusing. Is, are you picking what you think is going to happen, or what you think should happen?
What should? I always think it should be should.
There's so many bad GMs out there that we can never get it right.
No. If you get 5 dead on, you've done well. I think that's the key thing. Because you always get, the Patriots picking a guard from Saskatchewan or wherever the bloody hell it was. What was
Chattanooga.
That
was strange, wasn't it?
If I'd have said that in ours, you would have thrown me off the podcast.
Exactly.
But that is what happened. I wouldn't have had Clyde Edwards-Helaire going in the second round, let alone the first. But that is what happened. So can't be 100% correct, but I think you can only go into it saying, if I was in this position, this is what I would do.
Yeah.
And it's the honest approach as well. That's the main thing.
I'm going to bow to you on the Steelers pick. So whatever you say is like, yeah, all right.
I've got the last 2 years right. I think the Steelers are absolutely nailed on. I think they have to take Darnell Wright. I mentioned it in the last podcast. He's such a Steelers tackle. and
He
he'll get
is.
drafted by the Steelers, and he'll stay there for 15 years and
I'll take
be
it.
an All-Pro. I
I want Joey
he's
Porter Jr.
You're
Can I
not going to
have
get
him
him
as
because he's
well?
going to go early.
Damn.
Who's your comp for Joey Porter Jr. really quickly?
Joey Porter?
Shut up. Do you know who mine is?
On.
JC Horn. JC Horn.
Oh, that's not
He
bad.
is
Yeah, he's a
he
bit
is
handsy, but he's very good.
genuinely JC Horn. I like JC Horn. I've come round to him a little bit last
Thank you.
season.
You went too up in the draft, but
It's just a holding. It's just a hold. And that the thing is, I was comparing him to PS2 as well, and Satan's obviously a lot better.
there we go. Anyway, we better get out of here. So,
Yep.
Thank you very much, guys, for listening. Make sure you check us out at thefinaldown.com and patreon.com/finaldown. Until next time, though, I've been Jim. That's been Dave. Thank you very much for listening.